Hello and welcome to this week's episode of John's Garage. This week, I'm getting wet, but I'm also here with a Volvo 700 series, so who cares? Anyway, listen, huge shout out to everybody in Neenah College. This is one of my students' father's car, so guys, I hope you really enjoy this. So with that, let's jump into it. Okay. For those of you who don't know what a Volvo 700 series is, this was Volvo's answer to motoring in the 1980s. Launched in 1982, it went on to be produced up until 1992 with a run-out special of a model year 1993 model finishing up the total run. Between the Saloon, which we have here today, the iconic Estate, and of course the little-known 780 two-door coupe, this car made up about 1 million sales for Volvo over that course of those 10 years, okay? So initially this car was launched as a 760, which meant that it had and came with the PRV V6 engine, okay? So that's the Peugeot, Renault, Volvo V6 engine, and of course 2.8 litre, 2.9 litre, also fitted to the DeLorean and a huge range of other cars. Very iconic, very well-known car altogether, okay? Now, initially, for the first 2 years of production, all you could get was a high-spec, the V6. That was, the idea behind that was to make it more of a halo car, a desirable car, something that people really wanted to buy. After that then, the 740 came in, which offered the 4-cylinder engines in 2.3 litre, 2 litre and 2.3 litre turbocharged form. Okay, and that 2.3 litre turbocharged form was very, very powerful engine for the time. In fact, it was better performance than the V6 in a number of different areas, so it was possibly a little bit more desirable as time went on, all right? Now, this car had a bit of a long gestation period and a bit of a difficult gestation period. So initial designs happened in the mid-70s. They progressed along up until about 1977. However, the oil crisis had left Volvo in a bit of a difficulty. So one of the chief things this car had to be over the 200 series was economical. It also had to be safer, and it also had to be more durable, okay? So what did that mean in terms of actual production? It means the body is fully galvanized, so no rust. Very important in Scandinavian countries where they use a huge amount of salt during the winter months, and also in the all-important North American market, again, where certain states use a huge amount of salt during the winter months. Next up, more economical, okay? It is more economical than a 200 series, but I wouldn't exactly say it's hugely economical. So I asked the owner, what do they get out of this on a run? They reckon about 25 miles per gallon, which sounds about right for a big heavy car carrying a 2 litre with a manual box or manual gearbox. Okay, so that does sound about right, but it's not going to blow your socks off kind of economy. A lot of people wonder, what is the drag coefficient with this car? It's about 0.40. Now, when you can consider that against its competitors like the Audi 100 in the early 80s, that was given out about 0.29. I hope that sound is okay, folks. It's blowing a gale here. Now, all of that doesn't tell the full story though. This car was far cheaper than its German competitors. It was also far better stocked. Now, as I said today, we have a 740 GL. That means no alloys, no aircon and no leather interior. However, okay, it does come with ABS brakes, it does come with power assistance, and it does come with all of those safety features which I've talked about already. Also to say to you as well, anyone looking to consider one of these as a classic car, I highly encourage you to do so. The bodies are massively durable, the parts are very, very plentiful, and to work on these, you have a huge amount of space underneath that bonnet. They're very, very easy to work on. So honestly, I couldn't recommend them enough to anybody. Don't be afraid of them. They're nothing to be afraid of. Also, these came in a 2.4 litre, I think it was a 5-cylinder turbo diesel engine. Again, very good, strong engine, very, very durable, and that was fully involved with the Volvo ethos. Now, you might be wondering a little bit, what was this car meant to replace? If this was the Volvo for the 80s, what was it replacing? Well, it was meant to replace the Volvo 200 series, so that's the 240 and the 260. Never actually managed to do that. They remained in production past the production date of this. There's a few months between the difference, but it remained in production longer, up until about 1993. That was taken out of production to make way for its full replacement, which was the Volvo 850, which was also the replacement for this car. Now, this car, a little bit like the 200 series, soldiered on as the Halo car was in the Volvo group. So it became the 900 series. So that was the 940 and the 960. So this body style remained in production, and Volvo squeezed about another 700,000 units out of it, okay? Far more rounded, a stronger looking vehicle, and I'd say a lot more fuel efficient. And of course it took the interior from the 760 as well to make it that little bit more luxurious, but a very, very good car. That entered production in about 1992 as well. Anyway, let's jump inside. We'll have a little chat about the interior and we'll see what we like in there. Okay, so folks, the Volvo 200 series was often described as a brick. Well, this is a bloomin' tank, okay? Everything inside is solid. There is no cracks on anything. I've taken this for a long test drive. There isn't a creak anywhere. Everything works exactly as it should. We have the original Volvo radio. We have these absolutely lovely chunky heater controls, lovely big chunky fan switch. Over here we have big chunky light switch. We have lovely chunky indicators, chunky gear, steering wheel with, of course, little horns there to the side, I think, if they work. We have a lovely big center boss here, which would in later models been available in some markets with an airbag. We also have this lovely, lovely big storage glove box. Again, you've got road maps in there, central storage here as well. And this is the great thing about these cars. They're so well thought out, okay? Nice little slider control here for opening the door as well, and electric windows and electric mirrors up front. So Volvo really, really thought about everything here. Something else they thought about with this is everything is angled over towards the driver. Again, that's part of the safety aspect. These big chunky switches, part of safety as well, so that you can find them easily. It's not some fiddly touch screen where you're trying to touch a tiny little button. No, Volvo knew that if a driver was driving the car, they need to be able to touch things, they needed to be able to see things. And seeing things is another thing here. We have 5 massive, clear dials in front of us. Fuel gauge to the left, then we have this huge big clock, massive speedometer, huge big rev counter, and a little bit of a smaller temperature gauge. And a load of different warning lights then appear underneath it. And what else do we have in here? Well, on the odometer, we have 35,359 miles, and that is genuine. It's backed up by full service history, and all of the MOT certs are available for this car, so it's in incredible condition. We also have heated front seats. We have, again, a lovely, lovely, easy way to get at the fuses in under there. I'm not going to actually access it right now, but the fuses are easy to access in under there. We have heated rear window and mirrors. If you think about 1989, you're getting heated mirrors as well. Lovely big sun visors here as well to keep everybody safe when they're driving in the winter. And this huge squared off interior, again for safety. There's a huge big safety bar up here as well, just to protect you in rollover accidents and so on and so forth. So it's incredible condition. Also, one nice touch I love that's still here is the original rubber floor mats. They're still fitted to the car, and it's great to see that, along with all the other original plastics, okay? So let's jump in the back and we'll show you what the rear space is like back there. So folks, you're very welcome to the back of the 700 series. There's enough space back here for, I'd say, diplomats and a leader of one of the world's most powerful countries, the USSR and their satellite states. So what do I mean by that? Well, the East German leaders used to use Volvo 700 series and 200 series. And the reason being is Sweden was seen as a little bit of a neutral country. This was a luxury car. This was acceptable to them. They couldn't be seen driving Mercedes and Lincolns and all those other different brands. So they preferred Volvos, okay? Loads of space back here by any stretch of the imagination, and a lovely big center armrest, lovely big cushion thing. And of course, safety first. There's a great big warning light here telling me, put your seatbelt on or I'm going to flash at you until you do. And that's exactly what it does. Other than that, windy windows here. This is the GL specs. We don't have electric windows back here or leather interior. But yeah, it's an absolutely fabulous place to be. The big, huge headrests are there for safety. You can also push out the center section of it if you were the driver, and it gives you a little bit of a better rear view look as well, because you can see through the headrest. But I'm going to place that back in there for the owner so that they don't have to do it later, okay? Anyway, let's have a look and see how big the boot is. I'm sure it's massive. Okay, folks, so we're around the back of the Volvo 740 GL, and what have we got? Well, we have the usual and typical rear lights, massive rear bumper, and this absolutely massive boot. We could put several bodies in here. It's actually incredible. Full-size spare wheel as well, obviously very important and very good to see. But yeah, really, really good. Now the owner tells me the boot struts aren't holding up the lid, unfortunately, so if I put my head in there, I'm liable to lose it. But anyway, let's have a little look at it. I'll lift the camera up and you guys can get a little look, and I might be able to use this to prop it up for you for a second. Let's have a look. Simply massive boot, loads of room, which is great. Volvo being hugely sensible, realised that people would actually like to fit stuff in the boot. Anyway, let's jump underneath the bonnet and then we'll be ready to take it for a drive. Brr, folks, it's an absolutely rotten day, so I hope the sound is okay for this, but there we have it. Here is the Volvo red block 4-cylinder engine. As I say, massive amount of room in here for working on it. Incredibly durable engine. Okay, has lasted very, very well. This one is in absolutely beautiful condition. I'll give you a full look at it in just a second, but absolutely brilliant. 4 cylinders, not Volvo's most powerful 4-cylinder engine. That would be the 2.3 litre turbocharged. Both people like to say, oh, it's a red block, it's the powerful one. It's absolutely not. It is just a 2 litre 4-cylinder. But what it is a very durable, economical, luxury cruiser, not a bruiser, cruiser, okay? Fabulous condition. As I say, very easy to work on, parts are all available, nothing particularly difficult about this one, and this being the later one, it has electronic ignition, so you don't have to fiddle around and faff around with carbs anymore. The computer does it all, okay? So yeah, fabulous. This week, I want to start by saying hello. This particular car, and the reason I'm saying hello in this particular car, was submitted to me by a student. It belongs to their father, and I teach them in Nina College. So hello to all my viewers in Nina College, because I'm sure a lot of you are going to tune into this and you're going to be laughing and you're going to be slagging me on Monday and saying, oh, I saw you on YouTube, sir. But anyway, what are we here? What are we talking about, okay? This week, I'm proud to say we have an absolutely iconic car from the 1980s, and it was Volvo's answer to motoring in the 1980s, and that means we have a Volvo 700 series. So this particular one we have in 740 GL flavour. That means we have a 2 litre 4-cylinder red block engine underneath the bonnet, pushing out about 110-ish horsepower. I'm going to put it around there. It's not particularly fast, but that's not particularly the point of the car. Also comes with a 5-speed manual gearbox, which can be fun and can be entertaining. Now, just to explain a little bit of the history of the 700, Volvo produced about 1 million of these cars, so it's quite a success story for them. But that doesn't tell the full story of the 700 series. The 700 series was brought around to replace the Volvo 200 series. However, the 200 series outlived the 700 series by just a couple of months, but it stayed in production the whole time the 700 series was in production. You might ask why? Why on earth did the replacement not live as long as the car was meant to replace? Well, the reason for that was the 200 series continued production and was a cheaper alternative to the 700 series. And a lot of people in the showroom would look at the 700 series and say, oh, that's a modern Volvo. But this is also a modernized Volvo, okay? So it was still a good alternative to the 200 series. Now, of course, the 700 series was, just going around the turn there, was far more advanced. So although you still had a live rear axle, a lot of people when this car was launched thought it was the same rear axle setup that came from the 200 series, but it wasn't. It was far more advanced. So you had the live rear axle, but that was placed inside of an independent subframe, which isolated the, I suppose, the road noise and the choppy feel of it. Didn't totally work, but it did work very successfully. The other thing which was, I suppose, more advanced and special about the 700 series, apart from the safety and comfort aspects, was also the fact that the entire body was galvanized. So Volvo, one of the 3 things that Volvo wanted was this car to be durable, they wanted it to be bigger than the 200 series, they also wanted it to be more fuel efficient, and it achieved all 3 of those different things. But as I said, this car came about after a long gestation period in the 1970s, late 1970s, and it also marked down a couple of other things. It also came about after a couple of other things. Chief among them was the almost total bankruptcy of Volvo, okay? So several times in the late 70s, Volvo almost became bankrupt. They almost merged with Saab. They almost became an oil exploration company, or had that added to their portfolio. But they avoided all those things and they managed to stay independent, and the Volvo 700 series was the car that was destined to keep them independent. Now, when the car was initially launched, it was a lot lighter than it looked, but it was also pretty damn square. Even the 200 series managed to be more rounded than this. So the 200 series was known as the brick. Well, I think it's fair to say this was known as the tank. It was incredibly durable. It was capable of massive miles. And of course, as I said, it was more fuel efficient than the 200 series. However, there was an issue. It had a drag coefficient of about 0.39, 0.40, and this is when the Audi 100 could have 0.29, okay? And that really took from the fuel efficiency of the car. However, what it didn't take from was the comfort of the car. So you have a really wide body, even by modern standards, good front and rear space, vision out of the car is absolutely excellent, and of course you have those bluff fronts so you can see exactly where the car starts and stops when it comes to parking it, so it's not nearly as difficult to drive as you might imagine it is. Other than that, huge amount of safety features would have come with airbags in certain markets, and of course crumple zones and safety zones, and big thick safety bar up here on the roof to protect occupants in rollover protection. I asked the owner of this particular car what kind of miles per gallon they get out of it. They reckon around 25 miles per gallon. Not too bad considering the size of the car, but I'd say probably about average even for the 1980s when this car was launched. Now, of course, the 700 series was launched in 1982, but it wasn't the 740 that was launched first, it was the 760. So all you could get for the first 2 years of production was the V6 version. So that was the Volvo PRV6 engine, okay, so shared with PSA, Renault and Volvo, and it was their V6 offering at that time. Power at the time came in the form of 156 horsepower, and of course that went up to 170 over the course of the life of the car. It was also available as a 2.3 litre turbocharged flavour, okay, and that was particularly fast. In fact, that was faster, more fuel efficient and more powerful, I think, than the V6 engine as well. So now, bear in mind, I might be a little bit wrong on it being more powerful, but it certainly was faster, had a 0 to 60 time sub 8 seconds in various states of tune, okay? This particular example that I'm driving here today has 35,000 original miles, comes with a service history and the MOT history to back all of that up, and the owner tells me they added 1,500 of those miles, and they've only owned it, I'd say, less than 6 weeks, okay, at this stage, maybe 7 weeks. I think they bought it as a Valentine's Day present for themselves, and sure, why not? Why wouldn't they do that? Lovely car. One thing I love about this era of cars is the lovely crisp styling to the dashboard, the fact that everything's tilted over towards the driver, and I love these slider controls as well. Very, very nice. Now, what I would say to anyone watching this who's looking and thinking, I wouldn't mind one of those cars, okay? Number one, parts supply is excellent. Everything can be gotten. There's workarounds and know-how videos and guides. All of that stuff is all available online. There's no mystery with these. These are really simple mechanically. Next up on top of that, okay, parts supply is excellent. And the other thing I would say is I prefer Volvos of this era and Saabs of this era to Mercs. Not because there's anything wrong with the Mercs. I need to be clear because I'm going to say something that some people won't really understand. The Mercs of this era, in my opinion, were possibly too good for their own good. As classic cars, personally, I feel they're not separate enough from what they would have felt like in the past. They're not different enough. They don't feel old enough. Whereas I think a car like this, it feels old. It doesn't feel brand new. It doesn't feel modern. It's an absolutely super feel to this car. I'm just still getting a little bit used to that clutch. It's nice and light and it's so easy to use. Of course, also fitted with the optional and original rubber mats all around. They're still with the car. There's no wear and tear anywhere in this car. The seat material is lovely and deep. It's really, really nice car. I'm absolutely delighted the owner gave me a chance to drive it. It's an incredible car. It's a lovely little time capsule. Of course, and something I always compliment owners on in their cars, everything works here. We have the electric windows up front, they work, windy windows in the rear, you have a nice glove box, you have the original radio. I love original radios, I just think they look great in a car. You have the heater control system here, no air conditioning, thank God, okay. Probably if it was here, it would be broken, although maybe being a Volvo would still be working. We have power assisted steering, that's working fine. All the dials are here, lovely big knobs for the light controls and all that, and it's all working and all in excellent condition, okay? So I love to compliment owners on cars when they're kept as nice as this. Unfortunately, my own cars aren't quite as good as this at the minute, but someday I'll have them working and we'll be back up and motoring again. Anyone who has old cars knows what I mean by that. They just never work when you want them to. Other than that, I think it's a lovely feel. So if somebody wanted a classic car, I'd probably steer them towards something like this. I think it's a really nice car. Other than that, thank you so much for joining me in John's garage this week. The weather has been miserable. It's taken me weeks to get to film this car, so I really want to thank the owner as well with their patience. It's absolutely gorgeous to get these cars out and to show them and just show all the special cars that we have in Irish roads. I know we've had lots of supercars, but this is a supercar in a different way. So listen, thank you all so much for joining us in John's Garage this week. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and give us a comment underneath. Did you own one of these? Have you childhood memories of them? Let me know and we'll have a little response to them. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye bye.